Okay, well, first of all, can I pay my respects to our traditional owners, where this is broadcasting, but also around other parts of Australia and Queensland, just to pay my respects to the past, present and future, to our ancestors that are still a part of our country. And can I also, just of late, acknowledge our National Sorry Day and the National Reconciliation Week, as well as part of our National Referendum Day. Very important dates in our calendar, and of course we know May always represents our domestic and family violence awareness as well, campaigns and so forth right across Australia. So it's important that I pay my respects to all those that are involved with domestic and family violence, and all our victims across Australia. So look, for those of you who are joining me or for me to share today, I'm going to be talking about cultural seasons, just so people have an understanding what I'm about and how I operate as a part of working amongst our people in communities and across the nation. My background, for those who do not know me, my name's it's Randal Ross. I'm Aboriginal, Torres Strait and South Sea Island. My three cultural backgrounds. My Queensland connection, I'm a Juru man. I'm also connected to Umpla in Lockhart, in Cape York. I also have connections to the Torres Strait as a part of my grandmother, who's from Uru, Darnley Island and the Eastern Islands, and then as well as my South Sea Island background, which my connection goes back to Tanner Island, Ambrym, Santo, as a part of my families from the South Sea Islands. So that's who I am, and today I thought I'd talk about as I said, cultural seasons. As we can see, the current climate that's happening around Australia, not around Australia, but also around the world. Of course, I'm talking about COVID, the coronavirus, or COVID-19, as it is known, and it has its impact and effect on everyone across the world, and it's still impacting on many of our people and communities, and that's why it's important that we acknowledge this particular season that's happening as a part of this process. There's been a lot of restrictions put in place. There's been a lot of organisations, communities, and of course families and individuals, that have been affected by the impact of COVID-19 in one way or another. When I talk about the impacts too, one of the particular impacts I want to talk about is in our communities, where a lot of our families, haven't been able to move out of communities, and this has caused, we know, a lot of it's a strain within our families and within our communities, particularly with when we look at certain issues, mental health, suicides. We talk about domestic violence, domestic and family violence. Some of the alarming the impacts that are taking its toll on our communities. So that's why I thought I'd talk about the cultural seasons, and there is a poster that I'll share as a part of this presentation. And in this particular presentation, I want to talk about before colonisation took place, there were already systems, there were already roles that were already in place with many of our families. And as a part of, I guess, those times, we spent a lot of time together as families. There were particular roles that women played, and there were particular roles that men played. But then there were particular roles as families that we all played a part raising many of our future generations, our children. And that's where I want to talk about as a part of this practice, cultural practice. And in the desert, they call it Ganyanimpa. And my language, and on the East Coast, where it's a part of our Juru, we call it Murmatalgari. And the particular term is called holding. And that's the same in the desert as Ganyanimpa, which is holding as well. So this practice of holding, and that's why when I talk about those particular seasons, and this is where women are so important to our families. They're the backbone of our families, they're the backbone of our households, they're the backbone of our communities. But, there's a lot that goes through that a woman, or in particular a mother's love, and, that impact it has on children. And that mother plays an important part because she carries our future generations. Our mums carry our future generations. And right within the womb itself, there's the learning begins as Bob is connected to mum, can also feel and hear and literally what mum is going through. And that's where, and we talk to, those babies within the womb or within the belly, and you can hear their response or see their response. But the thing about it is that as a child is born, there's a role where mums must play as a part of nurturing our future generations. And this is where, in traditional times, we know that there was smoking ceremony involved. There was particular naming of those children under their kinship system as a part of their skin systems. And then, of course, mums have a role where they must take them to show them the vegetations, the bush medicines, teach them as part of those river systems around our country, what is on our country. And that's why when you look at this particular poster, when you look at the far right corner, you can see the mum or a mother figure with children. And the children itself are young children. And that's that custom that I've been sharing a little bit about, where our mothers play that role of raising those children. Even though our dads are there, our fathers are there, it's the mum who is so important to spend with our children in those certain parts of their life growing up. And then as those children reach a certain stage or a certain age, then there is a shift in the roles. And that's where, when I talk traditionally in ceremony, as a part of ceremonies which we acknowledge still happens around our country, and that's where, as they go through ceremony, the children, they now, when they finish, are becoming young men or young women as a part of those ceremonies. So in those last stages, now that they've gone through that process, this is vitally important, where now fathers or dads or men play an important part, because the change of roles, there's a change in that role. And that's why, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, when you're looking at the poster itself, or left-hand side, you can see as the mum is with the children, then you go to the opposite side, and you'll see diagonally down, on the other side, you'll see then a man with a shield and his spear with those children. And the children are at a certain age or a certain stage now. And that's where I talk about now the changing has started or begun, where men must now take our children through the last stage of their lives to become, young adults or young men and women. And as a part of that process, there's key roles where men must teach how to be a protector, provider, teachers, nurturers, but also linking them back to where they come from, so they know where they're going as a part of that direction in their own lives. But in doing those critical or those particular roles from dad, then as a child, young men and women then reach that final stage, they should be able to step out then and become that young man and woman. So it comes back to, right at the beginning, you can see within this poster, that's why it's important that people understand that there were systems that were already in place. And as a part of those systems, everybody knew what their roles, and you can see men and women both hunting, and then there's particular seasons. So, and we tell by our seasons are so vital because we know that as a part of those seasons, there are different variety of food sources that take place. Not only in our vegetation, so our bush tucker, even our bush medicine, but then also, what other food sources are available. Say today, we know out west, when we see that first frost, we know our emu are laying eggs, as an example, or we know winter time, then there's a lot of whitefish on the run. So we know all our big fish are coming in. So there are certain times and certain parts, and that's why, as a part of this season, those are vitally important to be taught by men and women. Now, I want to go back to mum and dad as a part of what they bring with themselves. And a mother's love. I want to talk about a mother's love first. And I want to thank all our mums out there, because for many of us, even for people like myself, if it wasn't for my mum, I wouldn't be here today, and I'm sure there will be many other mums, and that's why I want to thank our beautiful women, our mums, nans, aunts, sisters. They've all played a part as a part of nurturing our children, and that's why, I feel it's important to acknowledge our strong black women. But a mother's love, like I said, it's always undying, it's always there. Their love is always as a part of that nurturing role. But as children growing up today, we have a situation where I believe that, governments need educating around, because the major impact on our families today is that we have many mums still raising many of our children on their own. A lot of mums out there, a lot of nans, aunts, are still raising their children, or raising children on their own or without fathers. And like I said, as a part of that, I just shared a little bit about some of our cultural background and cultural roles, important as men. But with the dads, many of them are missing in our families. And today, I think one of the last figures that I looked at, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, we were still dealing with over 80,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families that were single households, particularly single household mums or nans or aunts or sisters raising children on their own. So, that's why it's important I share about the dads, because it's important to understand what a father's role or a father's love is. And many don't understand or experience, particularly our children, what a father's love is. And the greatest example I can share as a part of that is that, we can all be standing in a room and we could be arguing, and then that son or that daughter runs up to dad, jumps in dad's arm and puts her head on dad, or his head on dad's chest. And, we look at, well, how's that, even though there's arguments and tensions going on, but how's that child particular feeling sitting in the arms of dad? That child's feeling safe, that child's feeling secure. And that's the difference between a mother's love and a father's love. Even though our mum nurture us and care, and their love is always there, our dads or fathers, they bring that love of safe and secure. And that's why today many of our children are feeling insecure when we're dealing with children in communities or working with youth in the community. And that's the importance of having a father's love. So, and it's important in those seasons, and you can see back on this chart, I'll come back to the chart or the poster, and with those roles. And that's why, as a part of the seasons, knowing the seasons, we must work through a lot of those seasons. And today, one of the greatest things, or opportunity, I should say, that has been created, even though it's impacting on the world, COVID-19, this is an opportunity now to spend time with our families, particularly our loved ones. And even as mum and dads, we must spend that time around our children, because we know as a part of the restrictions, people can't move. So, even though it is a time to reflect and a time to share and a time to bond, this is crucial with our children, this period of time, because both mum and dad are at home, so we still have a key role to play as a part of not only nurturing, but still making our children feel safe and secure. So knowing that when they do step out into this world, that they're not going to be so insecure about it, but they've been taught by their mum and dad through that love, that mother's love and that father's love, that they can do it. They can, that they feel safe and secure to become independent, to become young men, young women, and they can take on some of those key roles as provider, and eventually, they become nurturers themselves. And that's why it's important in this time, and which I call it's a season we're going through. We face many seasons, and even today in Australia they talk about the 4 seasons, but traditionally, we can go from 4 to 8 seasons, and that's important. And that's why I've taken the time to spend as much time as I can with my son, and take him out bush, and it's time to show him some of our cultural sites, some of our traditional hunting. So they understand some of those patterns and the food sources and the timing within those seasons, so they know what foods are available. And again, and that's why it's important for family time. I know there's a lot of pressures, like I said earlier, a lot of tensions, and the COVID-19, and we can't blame too much of the authorities. The authorities are only trying to protect us in our environment, and they too, I know they are strict on our remote and rural communities. This is why they would be devastated if this kind of sickness was to get into any one of our communities. And we know the impact it would impact severely with many of our families. And that's why, even though we're in lockdown, there is still things that we can do with our children. We can still play games. We can, sit down with them. We can talk. We can even join them with some of their, they like playing their video games and so forth. So, but if you've got the opportunity to go bush and do some hunting or fishing, then, by all means, take that opportunity, because they're still learning. Remember, our children, they learn by what they see and what they feel. And if they're going to continue to see the drinking and the fighting and the domestic and family violence in that environment, then our next generation, all we're doing is passing that hurt onto them. So, and that's why I say, look, in this particular time, it can come as a blessing or it can come as a curse, but it's up to us how we make it this time. And that's why this season will pass, but eventually we'll look back at this season to see what did we do, or how much time we had with our children, because if this didn't occur, I can speak for myself that I would probably never spent the time as much I have with as much time as I have with my son, and other nephews and nieces, so that's why I've cherished this time, and try to share as much as I can, so they start to understand that role as a part of, eventually, when they become a man or woman, they understand what the love is about between a father and a mother, and the nurturing and feeling safe and secure. So this, again, as a part of those cultural seasons, like I said, this, we can call this a 9th season, and that's all it is. We're just going through that season, and the season will change. Things will get better. But like I said, in this time, this is a time for us to really strengthen as a family, spend time as a family together, even reflect, over life, in our stories, share our stories with our children so they understand as well. So this is, this is why it's been important. But before I do finish up with this video, I always have I do share a motto with many of our loved ones, men and women, and their families, and it's about change. To change your situation or your circumstance, only you can become the change. So I know in this time, like I said, it is a changing time, but what are we going to do with that change? Are we going to change our ways to have that time with our families or have that time with our children? That's the question we need to ask ourselves, but only you can change and become the change. So I just want to leave that with you, and I wish you all the best in this time, and please be safe, take care. Like I said, it's a time for family, and while we have this time together, please, make sure that we share the love. So look, as a part of this short, brief message about cultural seasons, I'm sharing this season. Again, like I said, take care, and I'm sure we'll all catch up sooner or later. And it's unfortunate we couldn't have our conference this year, but I certainly look forward to next year. But you all have a good time, take care, and God bless.